so I'm not going to use it. If you can't hear me, do something, most people. I am Sam Beckham. I'm Sam D. Beckham on Twitter, on GitHub, on pretty much everything. If you want to follow me there. I work at No Divide. We're a remote agency, so there's 4 of us, and we work all over the country. It's awesome. I get to work in my pants and a Jedi robe all day. Fantastic. We do a lot of web apps, so thinking in components and really making sure everything's really modular the way we work. It's very important there. I also run a little event called Frontend NE. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's pretty good. You should go. I've got to say, run it with Martin and Colin, and we just want to say thank you to all of you for being really awesome, because we were sitting in a pub worried if we would get 30 people in a room, and there was 100 people interested in it today, and we never expected that, so thank you very, very much. So here's what we're here for. I'm going to talk about pattern libraries a little bit first. This is what got me into web components and thinking in really modular terms. Well, what is a pattern library? So a pattern library is a coding style guide or a collection of code examples. It's a bit like Bootstrap. If you've ever used Bootstrap, which I'm sure all of you have, you've at least seen it. You get all these little examples of buttons and inputs and things like that, and you can copy the code, port it over to your app, and it just works, and it'll look the same as it does on the Bootstrap website. A pattern library is like your own version of Bootstrap, but for your app or for your website. It allows for separation of concerns between the front and the back end. So as a front-end developer, I just need to know that what I'm making works. As a back-end developer, can pull out my code, and it just knows that it'll work. We can work completely separately. It's pretty freaking awesome. So here's an example of when slides break. There we go. You can see on the left here, this is the element that you're generating, and this is the code that you definitely can't read that generates it. There's another example here from another one that I did when I was working at Frontend. It's a pagination element. You want the element on the left, you copy the code on the right, put it into your app, and it just works. You copy this, you get this. So what's the problem with pattern libraries? They're awesome, but everything has its downsides. One big downside is there's lots of copying and pasting. This is an element that we had on an old app I was working on. It's a fairly straightforward map element. You can search at the top, you can put in long and lat, you can scrub around the map. And I put this into a pattern library. This is before we used components, and the code for it looks like this, and it doesn't even fit on the screen. We used bend, but there's still just, there's too many classes, it's div suits. There's a lot of things to copy and paste. The code can be really hard to understand as a result of that. You can't really get your head around what's going on without properly digging into the code. It's a mess. I mean, there's nothing fancy going on there, there's just a lot of code. They're also pretty difficult to maintain. So we try and keep the pattern library completely separate to the actual app so that I can update the pattern library independently of the app itself. But say, we'll go back to the pagination ones we had before, and say the designer goes away and they come back to you and they say, right, we've redesigned the pagination, we want it to look like this now. I mean, that's fine, we can deal with that. It's a few changes, you change your CSS, you change a few scripts if you need to, and you also need to change the markup to, this is really broken, this. Which is, it's fine, like markup changes, we can handle them, but now we need to go into the app, and everywhere in the app where we did have the pagination, we have to change it to this. If there's any slight changes in the pagination, like variations on it, we need to change them as well. We need to update the CSS in the app, we need to update the JavaScript in the app, and just hope that it doesn't break anything else. This is what it was before, this is what it is now. The markup changes can really funk you up. So is it a separation of concerns? not quite. I mean, it's good, but it's not right. Then I found Polymer. So Polymer is kind of like a gateway drug for web components. It's a web component framework. I got shouted at for calling it a web component framework. They don't like you using the term framework. You use the term framework, people think of it in the same terms as Angular and React and Ember, them kind of things. It's not the same as them. It's not JavaScript MVC. Like I say, it's like a gateway for web components. It's a web component easy-reifier. It makes them a lot easier to use. It makes them easier to import, it makes them easier to create, it makes them easier to just understand, really. So I'm going to have to step back again a little and look at what are web components, because some of you might not know. Web components are a set of standards currently being produced, but no, it's far too long. No one's going to read that. In a nutshell, they allow you to create your own HTML elements. You can contain your styles within them elements, and you can add some JavaScript loveliness to them elements. So you can create an element like a HTML element, like if you've ever used a video tag or an audio tag, they are essentially web components. Like all the UI for the video player and stuff, that's all hidden in that video tag. You don't need to worry about. Oh no. It's a separation of concerns. And they're pretty freaking awesome. And I have no idea who this guy is, but he keeps showing up when I search awesome on Giphy. So I thought, let's mix them together. Let's take this pattern library, let's take web components, let's make them a thing. So this is the pagination component from before. This is just a normal pattern library version. And that generates this. Now, once you've made the web component, this is all you need to create the pagination. You want to include the pagination on your app, just use this. You can pass attributes in as well, so you can tell it the current page and the total pages. It's awesome, it's so much simpler. And they're pretty simple to make as well. I'm going to show you very quickly how I made it. So, first thing you need to do, in a new document, import Polymer. And then you create a new DOM module. Give it the ID of the tag that you want to create. So in this case, it's my pagination. Your element names have to have a hyphen in them. I think that's to get around you essentially naming an element something that already exists in the HTML spectrum. I'm not entirely sure, but that would make sense to me. Also, when you're writing them, make sure you don't miss off this bit here. Oh, there we go, fixed it. This is the template bit. This is where all your markup will go. We'll come back to that later, just so you know where it goes. You need to include the scripts as well. So you instantiate Polymer there, you tell it that it is my pagination. This is where you can also include attributes, change events such as when it's created, when it's updated, when it's destroyed, all sorts of stuff. You can put methods in there that you can call, and they're all exclusive to your element. They won't conflict with any other JavaScript on your page. So we're going to pass in some properties. Can you read that? The syntax highlight isn't great there. So current page and total page are the properties we're going to pass through. Inside these, I'm not used to being able to touch your screen, it's really close. Inside this object here, you can specify a type, so you can say whether you want it to be a string, a number, a boolean, all sorts. You can say whether it's required. If you've ever used things like Vue or React, it's actually quite similar, which is why a lot of people confuse the two. They're not required, you don't need the properties. This is a perfectly valid web component. I mean, we've got no markup in it, but it's perfectly valid, that'll work. But we need these properties for our element, so I'm going to pass them through. Now I've just pulled out this template here onto a new slide so that I didn't create a giant mess of everything. So everything I'm going to put into this template would go in here in the element. So this is where you put the markup for your element. And all I'm going to do is copy and paste that markup that I had from the pattern library originally. So this is just the normal HTML. You can even nest elements, so components, sorry. So if you have, I don't know, maybe an avatar component, then you can put that inside a profile component along with other components. You can nest normal HTML in there. You can do whatever you like. It's really quite nice. Styles. So these styles will only affect your component. They won't affect the rest of the page. So I've used the Ben syntax here for the class names, but I don't really need to. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could style that input without a class. I could just say, style this input how I wanted it to, and it won't affect the rest of the page bleeding out. Conversely, you can't. The styles on your page won't affect your element unless you specifically tell them to. So any element styles that, any styles I have in here won't affect the page's styles won't affect the element. It sounds a bit mental if you're used to normal CSS, which is supposed to cascade. I mean, that's the first word in CSS. But it does really help, and when you start using them, you see why it does that. Attributes. So if you remember the attributes that we specified before, the total pages and current page, you just pass them straight into the element like you would any other mustache syntax. If you've used Twig, if you've used Blade, if you've used Angular, pretty much anything, you should be familiar with this. I'm just passing in the total pages, the current pages there, and then the total pages again here. It's really simple. And that's it done. That's your entire element. All that's left to do now is import it. So this is a new document, this is the page that you want to include the element. You import it here using HTML imports, which is a new thing for web components. Same idea as importing CSS or JavaScript, but you do it with HTML. That gives you everything you need to use the component. And then you just use it. It'll be a very boring page with something that you've not even got to paginate, because there's only pagination on the page, but that's how easy it is to use. That's it. Done. So, what does this solve? If you remember before, the issues we had was there was lots of copying and pasting. So this element, if you remember, was previously this spaghetti soup of just mess. It's this now. That's a bit simpler. I mean, that's essentially one line of code. I've only put 4 lines there and split it so that it doesn't look really lost on this slide. You're passing along and you're passing the line. You don't even have to do that. You can set defaults for them. So there's some copying and pasting. Obviously, you can't get around having to copy and paste this entire thing, but this is a lot simpler than this was. There is actually a Google web component for Google Maps that looks almost exactly like that. And you just get a Google map, you're passing along, you're passing the map, and it just works. It's awesome. So previously code could be hard to understand. Again, back to this. This was hard to understand. It's now this. It's pretty easy, to be honest. You know exactly what's going on there. You know, if you're passing along, it'll change along. You're passing the lat, it'll change the lat. It's really straightforward. It's super easy to understand now. Now, the biggest problem I had with pattern libraries before was that they were really difficult to maintain. I'm going to go back to the original story. This was the original pagination that we had. This was the component to render this pagination. Then the designer went away and said, oh, we've redesigned the pagination. It looks like this now. Oh, before that was a nightmare. With web components, all I need to do is say, I've updated the web component, I've changed the markup, I've changed it in this component, rerun npm, update bower, whatever package manager it is you're using, and they get the new element. That import will import the new element instead of the old one, and the code they need to use to import this element is exactly the same as before. It's really nice. I don't need to do anything in the back end to change what it was. I don't need to change any markup in crazy PHP files that I still don't understand. I just deal with HTML and CSS and JavaScript that I know as a front-end developer and that I love. And I know it'll work when the back-end developer pulls it into the app. It's really easy to maintain now. Really easy to maintain. It's a true separation of concerns. It's pretty freaking awesome. I ran out of awesome gifts, so you didn't get one there, unfortunately. But can I use it now? Now, I gave this talk about 6 months ago, and the answer was yes, kind of. But I'm happy to say that now the answer is yes, absolutely. Because since then, Polymer have released version 1.0, which means, it means a few things, really. It's a bit harder to use, but it's a lot better. It's much faster, and it's also production ready. That didn't land as well as I thought, never mind. But if it's production ready, who uses it in production? I mean, it's alright saying something's production ready, but where's the proof? Well, these guys use it quite a lot. I mean, they are the big driving force behind it. It's the team at Google that wrote Polymer. Google are really pushing web components. And they actually use it in over 300 of their own products. They're not all live, but there's 300 products or projects in development at Google right now using Polymer. I tried to get a slide of them all and I got bored after 6. But you get, there's some big names on there. GitHub have actually used web components for years. You've probably used it yourself. You know that where it says 7 months ago or the latest commit? That's a web component. YouTube as well. I'm still in the way there, but YouTube have just released YouTube Gaming. That's entirely a Polymer app. I went on it to see what it was, and I watched a guy for 5 minutes play a truck driving simulator while children tried to chat each other up in the chat room on the side. It was really strange, The app was nice, the app worked well. So how can you get started with it? There's the Polymer Starter Kit. This gives you like a boilerplate for Polymer. It'll give you things like offline caching. It's responsive. It looks good. It's all material design, feel, aesthetic, whatever the word is. It's really quite nice, and I'd suggest having a look at this because it's a good example of how you can construct a Polymer app. It's a good example of how the elements themselves should bring. There's the element catalog that they have as well, which is all the elements that's used to build this. And if you want to look at how to write a web component, there are some really good examples of that. There's also the Polymer project website. This is the official website for Polymer. There's all sorts on there. There's tutorials, there's blog posts, there's extra elements, there's a Slack channel as well on there that you can join. But if you're just interested in web components, I'd recommend looking at these. So like I said, Polymer makes web components easier, but really web components are the awesomeness behind it all. So I'd recommend looking at webcomponents.org as well, because there's some other products that use web components in a similar way that Polymer does. Also, if you like Reddit for anything other than cat videos and people falling over and just general crap, this is actually a pretty useful subreddit. We put up videos, again, tutorials, all sorts, showcases of people's elements. I'd recommend subscribing to it if you're on Reddit. And that's it. So thank you very much. If you need to grab me to talk about anything, I can do some questions now, or I'm in the pub later on. Just grab us.
Do anybody have any questions? Yeah. What do you do about external libraries and web components? So how do you include, let's say, I've heard you can't use jQuery inside a web component.
You can, you absolutely can. I did have a bit in here, because I'm giving this talk in Manchester in a couple of days, and it's a 40-minute talk there, and I do go through another web component on how to build that, and that uses the moment library for passing time, and you just include it with Bower at the top of the page, like you would on a normal website, but you include it in the element itself, and then when you do the HTML import into your app, will pull it through for you.
What's included on the page or in the component?
Include it in the well, you can do either, but if you include it in the component, then wherever you use your component, all you need to do is include the component, and it goes, I also need this, it'll put it in for you. Yes?
Does that lead to a big overhead if you've got lots of different components that are all put in the same library, will it put it in your return?
I don't know. I don't know is the answer. There's a program, I want to say, called Vulcanize, that it'll take all of your elements that you're using. Similar if you've ever used Browserify or I can't remember what the other one is now. I don't know. I can't remember, but it packages it all into like one component for you, so it might notice that there's a few of your components are using the same thing, so it'll pull them all into one thing for you. I'd have a look at that. It's CRISPR as well that does it for you. Any more? Yes?
How well it works like with different MVC frameworks? Because last time I tried Polymer was like one and a half year ago, and it looked like it's overlaid with Angular a bit. So what's the situation now? Because Google is releasing new Angular now. So
yeah, well, so they've completely rewritten it since the last time you've used it. I would imagine like version 1's completely different. I used to use 0.5, and it's a whole different thing now. But one of the things that they were really excited about is that if you want to use Angular as well as Polymer and web components, you absolutely can. You can just include them elements inside your Angular app. So you can have Angular pull in the username, and you would just pass in the attributes from Angular to the props on your web component, and it works exactly the same. So that's why they want to get away from saying that it's a JavaScript MVC, because it really isn't. You can use other JavaScript MVCs with it. Angular directives will only work in Angular, React. I don't know what they're called. Components will only work in React, but web components will work anywhere and with any other library. That's one of the beauties of it. Yes?
It says production ready once browser support. Because it seems to be very relevant for this and support. It's a lot of shit.
It's not great, if I'm honest. It's I did have that slide in there, but it made it look bad, so I took it out. Google fully support it, Safari fully support it, Firefox is nearly there, Opera fully supports it, I believe, and IE, no, it's not IE. But the polyfills and the shims for it that you can get, it brings it all the way up. I think it's only IE 10 that you can polyfill up to because of the complexities involved with the shadow DOM, but I mean, IE 10's fairly old now, so if you've got some nice clients, you can definitely use it. Or if you Google, which seems to be